My mic was muted, so I'll start again. Welcome, everybody. We're so pleased you can attend this launch, this Brick Books launch, along with Arleen Paré for the launch of this beautiful collection first. This is a unique event in that not only is Arleen going to read, but one of the primary moves behind this book is the celebration of a long-lost friendship. And so it celebrates Arleen's friendship with Pat Hurdle, her childhood friend. And we have with us tonight 3 of Pat's other childhood friends who are also going to be reading portions of the book. So I'd like to start just with giving you an idea of how the event will go. I'll do the introductions and then I'll pass it over to Arleen, who will provide some opening remarks. We'll see a little slideshow and then the guests will read. Arleen will finish it off and then we will have some time for Q&As. If anybody has them, they can type into the chat and then I will communicate those to Arleen. Before we begin, I'd like to offer a landed acknowledgement. Brick Books is unique in that our operations take place on the Attawandaran, Algonquin, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Lenni Lenape peoples. But because we're national press, our impact carries across Canada. So we also want to acknowledge the nations of the lands that we occupy across Canada as well. Introduction to Arleen. I'm sure you probably need no introduction to Arleen, but Arleen's first book, Paper Trail, was nominated for the Dorothy Livesay BC Book Prize for Poetry and won the City of Victoria Butler Book Prize in 2008. Leaving Now, a mixed genre novel released in 2012, was highlighted on All Lit Up. Lake of Two Mountains won the Governor General's Award for Poetry in 2014 and was nominated for the Butler Book Prize and won the CBC Bookie Award. Her collection, He Leaves His Face in the Funeral Car, was a 2015 Victoria Butler Book Prize finalist. The Girls with Stone Faces, which Brick Book also published, won the American Golden Crown Award for Poetry. And her 6th book, Earl Street, was released in spring in 2020. She lives in Victoria with her wife of 40 years. And I just want to say, if you haven't bought the book yet, please consider buying it from your local bookstore. If you're in the Victoria area, Monroe's is a great choice. McNally Robinson also ships across Canada. And with that, I will pass it over to Arleen.
Thanks, Brenda, for that lovely introduction. I want to thank all of you for attending the event this evening. And thanks, Brenda, for organizing and for hosting tonight. I have a few other thank yous. Thanks to the BC Arts Council and to the McLaughlin Gardens Residency Program for supporting this collection. Thanks also to my wife, Chris Fox, first reader, in-house editor, and most importantly, in-house techie. Thanks especially to Pat Hurdle, who graciously allowed me to write about her life and my life with her. And finally, and most humbly, I want to acknowledge and thank the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees, the Esquimalt, the Salish, and the Wasanich, on whose unceded lands I now live and write. I'm grateful to the 3 other readers tonight, all friends of Pat Hurdle's, Judy McTavish, Penny Bertrand, and Susan Paula Smith. And the way that's going to operate tonight, I'm going to do about a 10-minute reading, and then I'm going to introduce in more detail the 3 readers, and then I'll go back to reading and finishing up. Today is the day of the May full flower moon, the same moon on which Pat Hurdle chose to die last year. This reading is dedicated to her memory. So at this point, we're going to have a photo loop. And John, if you could put up the slideshow, that would be great. I'm going to just talk a little bit about Pat Hurdle and I in a prologue sort of thing, and then I'll go into my reading, and then we'll go into the other three readers. So John, if you could put that slideshow up, that would be great. Pat Hurdle and I met when she was 6 and I was 5 years old. We became best friends. When I was 9, I was made to change schools, Protestant to Catholic. This was the first interruption of our friendship, a terrible pall. Her mother died when Pat was 14, a second, much worse pall. When I was 18, my family moved across town. Pat and I drifted. At first, just a little, then a lot. I lost track of her. I lost hope that I would ever see her again. And then 5 decades later, 5 decades after we had become first best friends, her name appeared in my inbox. The subject line, Green Circle, the street where we had grown up. It turned out that Pat had been living in Victoria for several years, not 10 blocks from my house and 3,000 miles from our childhood homes on Green Circle, just west of Montreal. We had landed in the same West Coast city, 10 blocks apart, curving back on ourselves. So I say we lived on Green Circle, but Green Circle wasn't really a circle. It was a half ellipsis. I'm going to begin the reading with this poem called Circle as Ellipsis. Green was the circle's true name. Half ellipsis was the circle's true shape, orbiting the bungalowed brick, spawning girls. All the girls wore jackets of green, fairy lore, woven leaves, mosses, and pale fescue grasses. A green mesh of girls, friendships and fights. Some wished for flight. Every birthday, when they blew out their candles, they wanted to fly. I make half of this up. Some wished for kindness, a new dress, a good mark. Their average number was twice their combined average age. Half flying, half fairies, half launching from the small mound of a hill beyond the street's elliptical orbit, behind the ring of north side houses. Their hair spuming, spinning milkweed in spring, sometimes bird. A world within worlds. They had their own. In their mouths were thin greenstick twigs, pussy willows, sumac, marbles, green, pink, bubblegum. Their teeth were small and imperfect. Their shoulder blades, wing bones, unfeathered. Their feet were rubber-soled. The next poem is called Soul of the World. In the drawing, crayon on Protestant school board newsprint, the woman is pushing the baby carriage into the future. The baby does not look concerned, facing the mother, facing the past. This could go almost anywhere. The 7-year-old artist pushes the story past the paper's right edge, presses hard with the green, rocking on time's uncertain fulcrum, having reached the purported age of reason, about to want explanations, halfway between inside and out. Despite appearances, her past contains certain dark edges, and though some say that time no longer exists, we still ask, where are they going, that blithe baby, mother and carriage? Where are they on their way to, aiming right off the page? This next poem is called Nothing is Happening. As night decreates day, inkwash on inkwash falls, this dark, this division. Winter nights begin in late afternoon. I am 8 years old, snowbank, snow fort, late, late afternoon, and I raise an icicle, frozen telescope to my freezing right eye, pierce through to the stars, back to the start, the first. The plank epic is not start enough. So many constellations. So young, I am freed time to time from the cupola of clocks, now swathed in mountains of snow, as snow buries the place from where I comb the navy blue sky, what stands in for a roof. All things can be imagined. All things can be known. No, this is not true for sure. That division, first from the rest. For sure, the glass square in the bricks of the house lights up behind me, amber and steam. I don't have to look. Far as the far chinks in the vast dark over my head. That house. My dinner is being prepared. But not yet. Stay. Stay inside the billowed, blanketing snow. Ice cube is to star as here is to unknowing. For sure I'm alone, stuck inside time. If not, then what? How to locate infinity? A cubist face is to a child's face, as time is to the face of the world. Pearl-hued or cold, absurd, white gauze or fast, soft, the sound of rice in a sieve, breath of a fish under ice. At this point, I'm going to turn to the next three readers, and it is with enormous gratitude that I introduce them, all friends of Pat's who volunteered to be part of this reading tonight. The first reader will be Judy McTavish, who grew up with us on Green Circle and knew Pat as a child, and then latterly as an adult. Judy McTavish still lives on Green Circle. She's kind of our ear to the ground on Green Circle. The second reader is Penny Bertrand, who knew Pat, Patricia in those days, in Ottawa, and who remembers with fondness especially the times she spent traveling with Pat. And the final and last reader will be Susan Paula Smith, who met Pat in 2005, when Pat moved to Victoria to care for her aunt. They first connected at the Rada Center. Susan remembers the amazement and joy of Pat and Arleen's reconnection. And of course I do too. And she will always remember Pat's sparkle and generous spirit. So at this point, I'm wondering if we can move on to Judy McTavish's reading. And thank you, Judy. Yes, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, it is indeed an honor to be reading tonight from Green Circle. The hopscotch squares have washed away tonight from right in front of the house because of the rain, but the memories are there. Arleen, thank you so much for your intimate writings. They speak to me so personally. I feel they are a true gift. The poem that Arleen has asked me to read tonight is called Games. Games. Suppose a rope. Suppose linear. A trope is not always, not necessarily round, not a birthday, a cake hiding 10 shining dimes, not a celebration, A rope might be plastic. It could be red, or it could be made of brown hemp, long enough and an occasion to jump, an occasional recourse to hold something or someone, or lasso. There is always an end to hold, sometimes two. If there are two ends, two girls must hold, one at each end of the span. If there is chalk, there might be a game, hopping into squares or accidentally not into squares. The squares are numbered, then they are hopped over or into sequentially. Hope always hovers. A friend is always hopeful. At the top, under a curved line, the word home and a smooth stone. If there is a phone, there is assonance and a party line. A party line is not always a party or political. The phone is bakelite, necessarily at that time black. Chalk is white, or it might be yellow cylindrical. Chalk is to sock, as thistle is to ditch or whistle. Stitch is to knot, as clot is to cream, which is not the case here. Suppose the sock is navy blue, paired. It could be a white sock with a short cuff, the sort of sock that can be worn into a classroom. The game might be considered friendly if apple, if thistle in spring. It might include fairies. If unfriendly, there will be repercussions, a customary sadness. Spoons too can be friendly, an indication of alphabet soup. And marbles, glass, zero round blues, cat's eyes, and zero round translucent greens. More than 5 friends takes a great deal of time. More than 5 marbles makes a respectable game. No one played jacks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy. That was great. And I do remember playing hopscotch with you, so that was very fun, taking me back. Now we'll go on to you, Penny, and from Ottawa, and thank you again for your participation.
Thank you very much, Arleen, for asking me to participate in this, and thank you for creating this wonderful book which helps us all to remember our Patricia. I've been asked to read the poem entitled "The Table Receives Her Full Fury." I'm always impressed when people in films upend a table halfway through the standard romantic plot, sometimes in uncontrollable rage, sometimes from sheer hubris. Everything on the table, half-finished drinks, olives, crusts of bread, fragments of a marriage crash to the floor. Then they turn and strut out into the night. Sometimes they are the hero, and sometimes they are somebody's wife. The people at the table, what's left of it, non-heroes, are understandably uncomfortable, their laps now so exposed. The hostess places her hand on the sleeve of the husband's beige jacket and says, "David, you know she didn't mean it." David answers, "Yes," but in an ambiguous tone, the perfect adult response. And this is how you know this part is only almost real life. In real life, nothing is perfect, modulated. No one remembers what comment caused the table to upend like that, what he said to cause Pat's heroic heave. No one remembers exactly what happened later. We know that she did not set fire to his car. His car was her car, and she got in and drove home, and in real life, the marriage will not last. This is not a true Hollywood movie. This is just how it was, how Pat told it to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great to hear you, Penny. That was great. And now we'll go on to you, Susan, right down the street from me in Victoria. Thank
Here
you.
we are. I'll wave to you.
Yeah.
It is a privilege to be asked. Thank you so much, Arleen, and it's lovely to meet Judy and see Penny again. It's a reminder of the flower moon a year ago, I have to say, and a privilege to have been with Patricia at that time. I'm reading the second part of a poem called Before This She Had Messaged. When I first see her after all these years, when I meet her again on her doorstep that day after almost 50 years, it's like meeting a mystical being, a unicorn or a fairy godmother. At the time, she does not have a dog, nor does she look the way she once looked, except for her unworldly blue eyes. Her hair is white. I step inside onto the red Persian carpet. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm not now. Thank you, all of you. That was really wonderful to listen to you read that. I'm going to finish up this reading with a few poems, and then we'll turn it over to any questions, and then that will be it. And again, I want to thank all of you who are attending this event very much for attending it. I wanted to do this so badly, especially for Pat and her friends and her family. Next poem is called Cosmologies. Those winter nights, the stars replete, as though seen from the Sahara. We lived in a suburb, a form of desert, fathomless space, miles of linoleum, sandless, tarred driveways, crazy eights, ordinary matter, which is what we are made of, gravity, light. The stars those nights, sweet points on black, a freight train blowing straight through behind the north line of houses, every night, hauling, howling through the suburban flatlands, the silent nowhere of this almost empty terrain, the speed of the train flatlined under the stars, rail cars, thunder dogs, a comfort, as the stars were a comfort, their shine so real around us, wonder and roof. I mentioned earlier that I was made to change schools from the Protestant school system to the Catholic school system in Quebec, and it was just the way things were back in the 50s, and that happens sometimes. So this next prose poem is called The Day of the Big Bang, or A Sudden Change of Schools. And I should say that this book is about my first best friend, of course, Pat Hurdle, but it's about a number of other firsts, including the first moment of the cosmos. And so this book explores just the questions around first causes. So I use that a little bit as a trope in this poem. The Day of the Big Bang, or A Sudden Change of Schools. I wonder if this is how the neutrinos felt before the cosmic Big Bang, as they hung out on that day on the dark side of nothing, knowing nothing of what was imminent, before everything was thrown into mass chaotic action, going about their business, eating their ordinary neutrino toast and jam breakfast that day, when their father scrapes his chair back from the table and says, "Hurry up, neutrinos, I'm driving you to school this morning." He's never done that before. Some kind of big shake-up. We're throwing the switch in 5 minutes. September 5th, the first day of grade 4, 1955, and the little sister neutrino says, "Do I have to eat all my crusts?" Albert Einstein died 5 months before. The little sister has not been paying attention. But the older sister Neutrino knows something's up and says, "What?" to the mother, who lowers her sad neutrino eyes. The father says, "I'm driving you to the Catholic school this morning, St. Joseph's." And that's the story of the Big Bang as they know it. I also mentioned earlier that Pat's mother died when she was almost 14, and it was, of course, awful, a tragedy for the family, for Pat and her sister Susan and her younger sister Elizabeth. But it was also a big loss for the other girls on the street. We were mostly girls on the street, because Pat's mother, Mrs. Hurdle, was very keen on helping us understand about nature, and she would bring us on nature walks through the woods, and we adored her. She was wonderful. So this poem is called "Pat Was Not Yet 14 When Her Mother Died." Then when the blossoms, shy on the apple early this year, behind hedges, then when the willow, pussies staggered along the red stems, catkins about to be reckless, undo, be undone, the maple in froth, the sumac, sycamore, the staghorn beginning to bud. Then when the milkweed, how I remember the low hill behind the McTavish's house, the leftover pods still stiff, silver shells in the spring, everything jeweled. Then even that year, when only 3 months before, winter waning, but still palpable, a presence. Her mother, who had taught us to see under the ferns, taught us the names, who many times had taken us over the tracks to the woods while the other mothers played bridge. Where then the trillium and the jack in the pulpit, burrs, beggar stick and cockle, quaking aspen, and the thin silver birch. Her mother, breast cancer, sinking. Her mother, when all she had then was a hospital window, finally died. And this is the last poem. And again, thank you for your attention. Take this coat, Red River navy blue, wool with red piping and a knitted red sash. The coat is also a river, a history, water flowing east, flowing south. Take this winter, this weather, this coterie, songs and sing-songs unsung. Red Rover, we call Pat over. The age is 7, or the age might be 8, a party line then at the time. Red Rover, we call her back. Thank you. So now I will turn it over to Brenda, and thank you, Brenda, in case there are any questions. And then we will finally leave you all with the photo loop and maybe a little bit of music that Pat really liked.
Thank you, everybody. Just a reminder, if you have questions, you can pop them in the chat for Arleen, and I will read them for her. And we are recording the chat transcript, so all of your other comments, Arleen will be able to read after the event. While we're waiting for comments, I just wanted to thank everyone for reading and participating, and what a beautiful way to celebrate a friend. So that was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give it a second. If there are no questions, then we'll move into the final music. People are saying thank you. And no questions. So maybe then we'll move on. And Arleen, did you want to say anything about the final choice of music?
Yes. The final choice of music is, I can't remember the name of it exactly, Brenda. Maybe Chris remembers it, but it's May the Long Light.
May the long time sunshine.
May the Long Time Sunshine. And it's originally played by a band. It was a long time ago, the Incredible String Band, yes. And because Pat had a practice that involved sort of celebrating the light, this music was very important to her. And so it was one of the last pieces of music that we sent to her before the full moon last year. So she was very fond of that. I should also say, Brenda, that, Susan mentioned the full moon and that Pat died on that full moon, and she had died with medically assisted dying. And so I wrote a chapbook, and it's out as of 2 weeks from now with Baseline Press. It's a chapbook, and it's about that particular event of her dying. It's called Last. So it's kind of like it's first and then there's last. So just to mention that, it's a bit of a, I don't know, a coda or something like that for first, yeah.
It looks like we have one question before from Nick Tran, who you know.
Yes.
Yes. How accessible are these memories to you before the writing?
Well, thank you for that question, Nick. I feel so these memories are pretty much accessible to me. I know some people find that when they start writing, more memories come up. It's not exactly that way for me. What happens is, as I'm writing, I wonder if those memories are really true. That's one thing that happens, but I just go with it because those are my memories and I'm sticking to them. Judy McTavish might have different memories, and my sister Donna, who grew up, of course, on Green Circle with me, might have other memories, but they're very accessible to me. I have a pretty lucid memory, yeah. And
here's another one. Can you tell the story about the teacup that Pat sent out to you on the last flower moon, from Sean Gallagher?
Yes, thank you, Sean. Thank you from one coast to another. It's so great that you're here. The teacup, it was very special to me, and I have it still sitting in my kitchen. I haven't had the nerve to use it. It's a beautiful Balik China teacup. It's really gorgeous, and it's in the shape of a seashell, sort of. And and Sean, you were part of this memory. I'm going to show the teacup to everybody. So this is the saucer, completely beautiful. And this is, there it is. There's the cup. So beautiful. And as I was, and everybody was, we were in the middle of COVID, of course, and not supposed to be standing too close to each other. But because there was an enormous event happening in front of our eyes, we were outside. We were standing fairly close. And at some point, Sean, you came out to me with a bag, and a very sweet paper bag, and said, "Sealed with a kiss." And really, if I wasn't crying already, of course, I was just turning to mush. And so he gave it to me, and inside was this beautiful cup. And so I walked into the house where Pat was in her bedroom. The doors were open so we could see in, and I thanked her, and that was my last communication with her. And so I thank you so much, Sean, for doing that, for being the conduit for that. It was beautiful, and that cup will stay with me forever. Thank you.
Another question from Sarah Levitt. Can you repeat how to find the chapbook Last?
Sure. Hi, Sarah. Great to hear you here. Last, the chapbook comes from a chapbook press in London, Ontario called Baseline Press. If you go to their website, I know it's going to be released mid-June. They may be selling it right now, so just go to their website and find out where they are with sales. It's a beautiful little book. Yeah. So thank you.
Another question from Jamie Cass. I hope I say the last name right. Did you have an opportunity to talk to Pat about your memories?
Oh, yes, yes. So I got the email from Pat. She found me in the end. Here I was looking, and she was the one who found me. So, yes, she arrived in my inbox and then lived down the street. So we actually did see quite a bit of each other. And we spent at least the first 2 years, November 2011, at least until maybe 2014, catching each other up with our lives and looking at albums and chatting, walking along, everything that we could remember, we were telling each other. So that was great. Yeah. I'm going to show you the chat book. Here it is. That's last from Baseline.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It is beautiful. Yeah.
Penny, I think Penny asked, how can we get the chat book? And I'm thinking she means the transcript. And so if I'm correct, or is that something else?
Do you mean the chat book, Penny, or do you mean
Oh,
it might be a chat book. It's a particular kind of book for poetry, very short. Brenda, you probably know what the out is supposed to be, somewhere between 20 and 30 pages, a chat book, something like that.
something like that.
Whereas a larger book of poetry is probably something over 60, something like that. So it's a short book of poetry. They're usually not sold in bookstores, and they're often hand stitched. They're lovely, and there's a limited edition. I think in this case there'll be 75. So, yeah.
There are no more questions. So let us close then with the slideshow and music again.
Thank you,
Thank you everyone for coming.
and thank you everyone. Yes.